Hi, everyone. It is your local realtor, Lisa Hoover, and we're going to be doing some exciting things today. So, I wanted to talk to you about market trends. And so, let's get started. So, I think it's so important that we talk about market trends because I believe the more information you have, the better equipped you are, and the best you can make a better decision. Okay, so real estate market trends, we're going to be talking about three counties today. Normally we focus on Prince George's County, and we probably will, but I also want to expose you to other what's happening in other counties in Maryland. So as the summer heats up, so does the real estate market in Maryland. In July 2024, we had some exciting developments in Prince George's County, Baltimore County, and Carroll County. Those are the two other counties I want to talk to you about. And so whether you're going to be a prospective buyer, seller, or investor, understanding what these trends are will empower you to make an informed decision. So let's dive into the specifics of that. All right. So when we explore these areas, we're going to explore 7 for each of the counties. They're going to be contract price, the seller help, which is seller subsidy. We're going to talk about financing contingency, which includes the financing, the actual finance itself, the appraisal, and home inspection. And then we're going to talk about property types. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. And so let's get started. Okay. So in Prince George's County, the good thing about Prince George's County is that because of its proximity to Washington, D.C., yeah, we know we love D.C., right? It showcases like a very dynamic and competitive market because it's so close, not only to Washington, D.C., but also Virginia, all right? And so let's kind of look at what the graph is going to tell us, right, in some of the market trends. So the first thing that we notice, remember I told you we're going to talk about 7 areas: contract price, seller, financing, the financing contingency, appraisal, and home inspection contingency, and property types. So for Prince George's County, the first thing that we notice is that this is a very balanced market, right? The pricing was very, very balanced. What do I mean by that? That the market was balanced. There were 40% of homes that sold above the list price. Yep, that's that blue part right there. And there were 40% that sold below the list price. So in that case, it was very balanced for both the buyer and the seller, right? What wasn't so great for buyers in Prince George's County was that there wasn't a lot of seller's help, right? Or what they call seller subsidies, right? So it indicates that there was a strong demand still for housing, but the sellers had more confidence not to even offer any type of seller help, right? Then the other thing we know across all of the counties is that financing dominates all of the transactions, and Prince George's County was unique in this aspect. All of the transactions that closed or that occurred with the purchase of a home or an investment property in Prince George's County were all financed. There were no cash deals that were recorded at all. And why is that important? That means that banks had money to loan to individuals so that they could purchase their home. So that was kind of really great news that there was money out there, right? And then let's move to some of the contingencies. So remember, one of the contingencies is financing. So all deals included financing contingencies, and 80% including appraisals contingency, which means simply this: that when the buyer made an offer that was accepted for that home, one of the contingency is that the home had to appraise for the value. And 80% of those offers that were accepted had that contingency clause in there, right? And which is important. That means 80% of the houses that closed, guess what? They met the appraisal contingency gap. There were about 20% that had the appraisal gap, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But one thing I want to say about that is that's when someone's saying, hey, I really don't care if it appraises or not. I really want this home, so I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars. So there was like 20% of the people that did that. All right. And then there was the home inspection contingency. I'm always telling my buyers when I represent them to make sure that you get a home inspection because you've never lived in that house. You don't know how that house moves or how it works, right? So a home inspection is important. So buyers were very cautious. There was an equal split in Prince George's County between the houses that waived an inspection, right, and those that requested repairs. So that was kind of really important. The interesting thing about Prince George's County is the property type. There were only like two types of properties, right? There were no multifamilies, there were no condos, there were only single family and townhomes that were being sold during this time. And 80% of it was townhomes, which is really such a good thing to hear because most people really do want to live in a single family home. And so that was king in Prince George's County. Got it? No, the pun on the prince. All right. Got it. So the next county that we're going to kind of talk about is going to be Baltimore County. And so Baltimore County, kind of where it sits, it has the proximity of being close to Baltimore City, but it's also very close to a very popular county, Howard County. It's one of the larger counties that exist in the state of Maryland. And what's interesting is that Baltimore County was a seller's paradise. It was buzzing with so much activity in July, and sellers had plenty to celebrate for sure. All right. So let's kind of look at some of the things that happened in Baltimore County. And these were contracts that were ratified, which means they went and the buyer purchased and the seller sold and they got the keys to the home. So the first thing that we noticed on one of the factors that we always look at is the contract price. There was an astonishing 70% of the homes in Baltimore County sold above the list price. Wow, that's amazing. Remember, Prince George's County was balanced, right? With only 10% at the list price and 20% below the list price. But 70% is pretty high. So sellers were really, really confident, right? Then you had the seller subsidies. There were 90% of the transactions that occurred without seller help, but there were some that buyers were able to negotiate to get some seller help or seller cost or seller subsidy, depending on how you want to look at it. All right. Again, this is not a county where cash was not present. Cash was present in Baltimore County. But what we also see is that financing dominated. 70% of the people that opted for financing received it for their transaction. So it shows a really good mix. And while 30% of people paid cash. Again, when there's financing, that means there's funds and monies available for banks to loan money to individuals so that they can purchase their home. And 70% is really, really, really good, right? In Prince George's County, it was 100%, but in Baltimore County, it was about 70% that were financed. So let's look at the contingencies. So that was kind of a mixed deal, right? As far as the contingencies, the financing, the appraisal, and the home inspection. So the first thing we know about for the financing contingencies, there were about 60% of the deals included a financing contingency, which means that, hey, I'm going to have to get this loan in order for me to close on this home, right? Whereas there were 50%, as you can see, that were saying they wanted our appraisal contingency, which is really good, right? And it's underscoring the fact that buyers were being cautious, even though it was a competitive, 70% market, 70% higher than list price market. They were still asking for this appraisal contingency. The other thing that we noticed is that buyers were not skipping out on their due diligence just because it was a competitive market. There were a high percentage that opted more than almost 49% that opted for repairs. So that means everyone requested a home inspection, maybe. Some waived it. You had about 30% that waived it altogether. But there were a vast majority of individuals in Baltimore County that said, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that. You have to fix it. And the condition was met, right? The other thing that's kind of different with Prince George's County is that single family homes still led the pack. That's not the difference. But there were condos for the first time. So in Baltimore County, you had a little bit more diversity, which may have also be some reason why you see some of the all cash dynamic in Baltimore County, right? So they were catering to a little bit more diverse group of buyers. With that being said, single family homes still led the way, right? So that's good to know. So that's just looking at the difference between two different counties that are in Maryland. But what's interesting is because of where they are located and the kind of the demographics of the area determines that you can be right next door to one county and there's a whole different thing going on. So that's good to know, right? And so let's now talk about our next county, which is Carroll County, right? And I don't know why it's doing that, but here it is. So let's talk about Carroll County, right? And with Carroll County, what's interesting is where it sits, right? So as you can see on the map here, Carroll County sits right next to Pennsylvania, right? And so a lot of people enjoy it for that reason because they may have relatives, they may have students that are attending college in Pennsylvania, and it's an easy commute for them. Some people even may work right over the line, just like they work over the line in the District of Columbia, right? So what Carroll County is known for is its vast expansion of land. It's a suburban feel, but it's not quite country, right? And it offers just peace and quiet. And so that's why a lot of people flock to Carroll County, right? So let's kind of talk about what were some of the trends that were happening as far as the factors that we normally look at. So the first thing we notice is, much like Baltimore County, Carroll County had a high percentage that was of homes that were sold above list price. 66.7% of the homes that were listed sold above list price. That's pretty good. There were 33% that sold at list price, but unlike Prince George's County, no homes sold under. So Baltimore County and Carroll County had that in common, right? And then let's talk about some of the seller help subsidies. What was, unlike Baltimore County, there were 67% of sellers in Carroll County that actually provided help, seller help, to the buyers. So it made it easier for buyers to manage that cost, and there was a lot more negotiation that was going on in Carroll County. That's what these numbers tell me, right? Here, the cash versus anything else. Well, what you have with Carroll County is, hey, there was cash, there was no cash transaction. That's the first thing we noticed. But again, like Prince George's County, financing was widely available to individuals, which means that the banks had money to lend so that people could become homeowners. So that's great news when you can find financing and you have some options as far as financing is concerned. So let's talk about some of the contingencies. So all of the deals in Carroll County included both financing and appraisal contingencies. You see that at 100%, right? And what's interesting about that is that that's how they were able to negotiate, which is probably why you had these seller subsidies numbers be so high, right? The seller help, right? So, and everything was met because, you know, it tells you these contracts were ratified, which means they got the keys. What's also interesting is look at the number for inspections. A majority, 68% almost, maybe 69% of the buyers that requested repairs actually got it, right? And so that was a contingency that was met. It was a lower number than that, probably about less than about 9 to 10% that just waived the inspection. But there was nothing. Most of the people in Carroll County were requesting home inspections, actually got the seller to make repairs for those home inspections. Again, like Prince George's County, Carroll County had only two property types, and that was townhomes and single family. What's interesting is across the board, so you've seen so far, is that single families homes are still sought after no matter which county you are in. And they made up almost like 68%, as I'm looking at it, percent of sales, while the townhomes were a little bit higher than they were in Prince George's County. I would say they probably make up about 26, 27% that followed behind. So that's really good to know. All right. So We've looked at 3 counties. We've looked at some factors that we're always going to look at, and just let's kind of see what kind of takeaways can we get from this. All right. So, some key takeaways with regard to this are the following. One thing for sure, there was something for everyone. There was something for sellers, for buyers, and for investors, right? And one of the things that I noticed for sellers is now is a prime time to sell, especially if you're in Baltimore or Carroll County, because you're going to get above list price. Where the competitive, where there's a lot of bidding and it's very competitive, so it's going to push the price above the list price and the demand is lower, right? So that's what's good news for sellers in those 2 counties. Whereas in Prince George's County is going to be a little bit more balanced, okay? For buyers, the takeaway that is with regards to which county you're in, you need to be prepared to be competitive, right? Because in each of the markets, there was some competition, with probably Prince George's having the least amount of just aggressive competition, right? But what you also had across all 3 counties is financing was available. There was money and funds out there. People were getting pre-approved. They understood the point of contingency as far as the financing contingency, as well as the appraisal contingency. And most people opted for it, as well as, the whole inspection thing, right? So that was kind of important. The 3 things I always try to tell my buyers to focus on, that was happening. And for investors, the trend indicates, particularly in Baltimore County and Carroll County, a robust demand across property types, right? And you don't have to think about, most investors, people traditionally think about multifamily, but as you can see, it could be single family, townhome, or condo, right? So that means that this is an important and good opportunity to invest in Maryland real estate if you're an investor, all right? So I hope that this information has been helpful. Take your opportunity to go through it slow and kind of look at the trends and see what's happening. At LH Real Estate, we're dedicated to keeping you, right, informed ahead of the market trends, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, or investing. Believe us when we say our expertise and local insight ensures that you're going to navigate this market with a whole lot of confidence. I believe that whatever side you're on, you need to be educated, and you can get that education through information. Got it? So contact us to learn more about how these trends can impact your real estate journey and to explore opportunities that are going to be tailored to your needs. Okay? So I ask that you would stay tuned, right, for more updates and insights, because we're definitely going to make that happen, right? And so just know that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we're here to guide you every step of the way to make sure that your goal of home ownership can be accomplished. We look forward to seeing and speaking with you, and know that we're here for you. Be well.